Good day. Today, I want to talk about something that's been kind of bothering me for, well, at least a year, probably more. But it's really bothering me now that we get to the season of draft, NBA draft, and free agency. And that is the New York Knicks. And I'm not going to say this is the management, because I have not heard the management say anything like with regard to this subject matter I'm about to talk about, but the media and the fans. And that is the obsession, and that's what it is to me, an obsession with trying to find a point guard. It's gotten a little bit ridiculous, and I'll tell you why. As I might have stated to you, I've been a New York Knicks fan since they first won the championship in 1970. I'm from New York, and I actually became a Knicks fan at the end of '69 because at that year, '69 was a big year in New York. The Mets, the Jets, and the Knicks were all champions. Unexpected, especially with the Jets and the Mets, very unexpected, and it was a great sports year for New York. And that was the first time at that point I was 9 years old, and I was conscious, or 8 years old actually, and I was conscious of New York Knicks in basketball. And actually when I was 8 is when we first started playing in the street in my neighborhood, when I first started playing in the street in my neighborhood with my friends. So I go back a bit with basketball with the Knicks. And at that time when I got into basketball, I started, looking up books and studying things on previous, players. At that time, the most recent players, Bill Russell was just retiring. I was aware of Bob Cousy. I was aware of Oscar Robinson was my favorite player, actually, aside from Walt Frazier. And I was aware of Lou Alcindor, who became Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, things like that. And so, if you look back in the history of basketball, from 1957 to now, from 1957 to now, there are only three. Now, 1957 to now would be 63 years, So in the last 63 years, there are only three NBA champions where the point guard or lead guard could be considered the best player. And even in two of those instances, it's questionable. So you had Bob Cousy, who the Celtics won in 1957, and he was MVP. And I say that's questionable because that's when they got Bill Russell and Tommy Heinsohn. And I think it's probably historically acknowledged that Bill Russell was the best player on that team. But let's give him that one. Then there's the Knicks with Walt Frazier. And again, that's questionable because Willis Reed was the MVP. He was finals MVP twice, and he was league MVP in 1970. And I remember he was the best player on that team. But let's give him that. Then, of course, you have Stephen Curry, which is probably the strongest case. But even with Stephen Curry, a two-time NBA MVP, he won the MVP in 2015. And the Warriors won the championship in 2015. He won it in 2016, and the Warriors did not win the championship in 2016. They lost to the Cleveland Cavaliers. But in 2015, he was the MVP, and they had, Harrison Barnes, Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, and actually the finals MVP was Andre Iguodala. But let's say, for the sake of argument, Curry was the best player on that team. In three teams, in 63 years, where your point guard was actually the best player. On all the teams where the point guard is the leading scorer and the best player, they don't win. Let's give you a very good example that we all are very well aware of. The best point guard in the NBA, and I dare anyone to argue me on this, the best point guard in the NBA over the last 10 years or so has been CP3. Chris Paul has been the best point guard in the NBA. He's a prototypical point guard. But he's only gotten his teams out into the second round, I think, once. And he's a tremendous point guard. But the way the game is played is not built to be led by a point guard. See, what people are confusing is the term, actually, point guard. Yes, the term, because really, like, for example, if you look at a Stephen Curry, or you look at a Kyrie Irving, or you look at a Kemba Walker, what you're looking at is not a player that actually sets up the offense, gets people in position, and sets the team up for a basket. You're looking at a player that can get his own basket, that can get his own shot. And that could be from any position. You're looking at guys that can get their own shot. Okay? But teams that win championships have guards that set the team up, that play solid defense, that are solid. Championships are won with first of all, the foundation of tremendous defense. That's how you start it. And secondly, as far as position, wings and front court players. That's how championships are won. Look, for example, last year, the reigning champion, Toronto Raptors. The final piece that got them over the top was a wing, Kawhi Leonard. And also you had Pascal Siakam, and Norman Powell. Now, somebody might say Kyle Lowry. Well, Kyle Lowry was their best player for a while, and they couldn't get out the first round. And then somebody might say Fred VanVleet. Fred VanVleet hit big shots. Fred VanVleet is only 6'1", but he's more like a two guard if you're actually watching him play. Okay? He doesn't set up the offense. He's a guy that actually hits big shots, makes his own shot. Okay? He's a shot creator. So, I don't understand if New York people know basketball and they want to win. See, my thing is, I want the Knicks to win. I want them to win championships. I want to get back to the level of competing for a title. Okay? And right now, the Knicks are starting from ground zero. Again, we started from ground zero several times, as you're very well aware, especially since they fired Woody. Okay? When they fired Woodson, we had won 54 games and then we won 37 games, and I guess that was a big disaster. They fired him. We haven't even seen 30 wins since then. Okay? And of course, the best player was Carmelo Anthony. All right. So, now everybody's all fired desperate to get a point guard. And it's crazy because we drafted 2 wing players. We drafted RJ Barrett. We drafted Kevin Knox, and we need to develop them. See? And we need to establish a defensive identity first. You got to start somewhere. You don't start having everything in place. It doesn't work like that. It's like a guy that wants to be a champion boxer, and he sees a champion and he decides, I'm going to be champion tomorrow. I'm just going to go into the ring and be champion. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of planning. So to build a champion from the ground up, you have to start somewhere. The Knicks have been the worst team in several areas. They're one of the worst defensive teams and the worst offensive teams. Worst 3-point shooting teams. They've just been terrible in a lot of areas. So you want to establish something. See? So like in baseball, the home run hitters don't win championships. Pitching wins championships. In football, you want to win a championship, you start 2 places. You start with a quarterback and you start with the offensive and defensive line. The offensive, because if you have a great quarterback, but he's getting his head knocked in, you start with a left tackle and you build an offensive line. You start with a defensive line that can hold the line of scrimmage and push back the offense. Okay? And then you get corners. All right? That's how you start to build a champion. Then you could get flashy wide receivers and great running backs and all of that. But if you don't have an offensive line and a defensive line, you're not going anywhere. And especially if you want to establish your team from ground zero. The New York Giants, my favorite team, established a winning culture under Bill Parcells with a linebacker named Lawrence Taylor. Okay. They started with defense and Harry Carson. Okay. That's how you establish. Same in basketball. So now in this year's draft, everybody is going crazy because we can't draft number 1. We're number 8. In the draft where there's no clear-cut best player. Okay, there's no clear-cut best player. And then they're desperate to trade the eighth pick to try to get some point guard somewhere. We have an opportunity. We're starting from zero. Okay, we have an opportunity. We have a solid point guard in Frank Ntilikina. We just need to let him play. And then I've heard the most recent craziest thing I've heard is this thing that we have to go get Lonzo Ball. I mean, seriously. Seriously. And you're talking about, and people are mad because Frank had trouble shooting. And he didn't see Lonzo Ball was drafted second overall. Okay. And they gave him they didn't just they didn't sit him. They played him till his tongue hang out, both in LA and then in New Orleans. Frank has never even gotten half of those minutes. Not even half. We have a point guard. Stop hating your own players. We have a point guard. Okay? He's plenty good enough. He plays solid defense, and if you give him a chance, like I said, he shot 86% from the line last year. He is showing he has the ability and the talent to shoot the basketball. Just give him time, give him reps, and let him gain the confidence. And I think he's going to get that in the Thibodeau because Thibodeau values defense, and he's the best defensive guard we got. So, drafting eighth, to me, you got Obi Toppin. There's a couple of blogs I really like. I like this guy Kent Jackson, Respect My Blog R&B. If you go back even like 3 or 4 years, he's always pretty much on point with the players in terms of judging their talent, their effect, their impact, and their long-term prospects. He's very good at this thing. I really like his blog, and he had us getting Obi Toppin at 8. Because he thinks that he's of the mind that Atlanta will take Halliburton. That's what makes the difference. And he's of the mind that Cleveland will take Okoro. I always thought Cleveland would take Onyeka, but then I looked closely at Cleveland, and Drummond is going to exercise his option and take the bag, the $28 million he's got coming. So they're not getting rid of him. Tristan Thompson, they're talking about re-signing, because he wants to retire a Cavalier, and they drafted him number 1 overall. So yeah, they probably wouldn't take Onyeka, but it makes sense that they would get Okoro, a wing player. Again, a wing player. Okay. And of course they got Kevin Love, who they're into for $30 million plus a year for the next 3 or 4 years. So, yeah, they drafted. So so he feels like Obi, I felt like, Cleveland or Atlanta might take Obi, but, he's feeling like Okoro, and I can see that. And then Atlanta takes Halliburton. And, of course, Detroit at 7 will take Killian Hayes because they're also point guard obsessed. Which leaves the Knicks at 8, and he says Obi Toppin, which if Obi Toppin is on the board, I take him. That solves our stretch 4 problem right there. Solves our stretch 4 problem for the next 7 years. All right. But if Obi Toppin is not on the board, I am definitely taking Devin Vassell. Devin Vassell is probably one of the few sure things in this draft. He's not a sure thing to be a superstar, but he's a sure thing to be a solid rotational piece. He can become a superstar. We don't know, but his ceiling is high and his floor is high because he already plays defense on an elite level. He's got a decent shot. He's not a great jump shooter, but he's got a very decent shot, catch and shoot shot, very good. And he can become better. He's got a 7-foot wingspan. You cannot teach 7-foot wingspan. Okay? You can't teach that. Like you can't teach 7 feet tall. You can work as hard as you want. It doesn't mean you're going to have that type of measurement. So this guy is 6'7" with a 7-foot wingspan. And he plays defense. Tremendous defense. And he's high IQ, like Okoro. So, I don't understand the obsession. You don't win championships because you got a point guard averaging 30 and 10. You know, not unless you have wings. Like I said, Stephen Curry is an exception. One of 3 point guards in the last 63 years that's won championships. Okay. Somebody might talk about, Kyrie Irving. Really though, look, Kyrie Irving was scoring 40 a game before LeBron James got there, and they were winning less than 20 games. Okay, LeBron gets there, and LeBron is not like, you can't classify him as a wing or anything. He's like Luka Doncic. He's a basketball savant. That's what I call a basketball savant. You can't really classify them by position because they just play ball and they can do everything. So you can't really, but you get LeBron James, and then of course, then they had J.R. Smith, and yeah, and you know, then they bring in some wings, Iman Shumpert from the Knicks, and they win a championship. Okay, and of course they bring in a shooter, Kyle Korver, and they win a championship. Okay, the first year, you know, but not only that, you'd be hard pressed to find a year where Kyrie played. I think the maximum games he played in his 10-year career, he played 75 games, and and then usually after that he's under 70 games a year. He's very injury prone. I want to see how this works out in Brooklyn, because in the last like 3 years, I don't think he's played 60 games in a year. He's very injury prone. But yeah, I don't know about, you know, Kyrie Irving. Talent off the charts, great shooter. But that's the thing about Kyrie. He's not a true point guard. Okay, he's not. He's a guy that can get his own shot anytime he wants, because nobody can guard him one-on-one. People can't guard him 2 against 1. I mean, he's a tremendous offensive talent. So that it's not because he's a point guard. All right. And of course, he hit the biggest shot in Cleveland Cavaliers history when they did win the title. Okay. And of course, LeBron got the biggest block in Cleveland Cavaliers history when they won the title. So yeah, there's that. But he's more of a shot maker. He's more of a shot maker, a shooter, than he is a point guard. All right. But you really win championships with wings. That's how you win championships. Look at the Miami Heat when LeBron went there. Dwayne Wade, LeBron James, Chris Bosh. You can't remember who the point guard was probably on that team, because they always signed some cat to the minimum. Because it didn't matter. They just needed somebody to bring the ball up the floor. Okay. I mean, and play defense, which is what they got. I think they got this. I forgot his name. I forgot his name. But they had some kid. I think they drafted him out of Kansas. Then they got Shabazz Napier. I think guys that minimum contract guys. Okay. You need wings. And so we got Knox and we got RJ. This is a start. Knox is just going to be 21. He's a baby. RJ just turned 20. He's a baby. You got to let these guys develop. Okay. And then we have an opportunity to draft a Vassell or an Obi Toppin. And if somebody takes Obi in the top 7, Okoro, you have a chance, you know, get another wing. Not only that, we can sign some tremendous shooters in free agency. See, this is the thing also. In order to make money, I mean, professional basketball and college basketball is entertainment. It's a game that's entertainment. And the people that sponsor it, the owners, the advertisers, the media, they make money on hype. And so the NBA draft is no different. They hype. Every year, you know, they hype and hype and hype. I remember when the Knicks drafted Kristaps Porzingis. There were people that wanted them to draft Emmanuel Mudiay instead of Kristaps Porzingis. Okay? What do you think about that one? See? So, and Mudiay was athletic and he was a tremendous point guard. Come on, man. See? So, there's a lot of hype every year. And every year, there's a surprise player that's drafted later. Like the Miami Heat just swept Indiana with Bam Adebayo. He was drafted 14th pick. Tyler Herro was the 13th pick. Okay? So there's always a surprise player that comes out of nowhere that's a tremendous game changer. And nobody was expecting it. That's going to be in every draft. That's in every draft. Okay? And then there's always busts. Every draft is filled with busts. Okay? Every draft. So who are the busts this year? That's what we really should. Who are the busts? And you know who the busts usually are? You know who let me just be clear. Who are usually the busts? People drafted in the top 5. People drafted in the top 5. Okay? Generally, you're going to get busts in the top 5. All right? So I wouldn't be so all fired hyped because we didn't get the first pick and we can't draft LaMelo Ball. We got a really good spot at 8. Let everybody else get the hype, the boomer bust guys. We can get a solid player at 8 that can help us immediately and start a rebuild and build a foundation of defense with wings. Look at Boston. Boston, even though Milwaukee is favored to win the title, Boston is coming. I think everybody can see it. And who are their players? Well, they got Kemba. And Kemba is not, I know they drafted him as a point guard, but again, he's a shot maker. That's what Kemba Walker is. Been that way since UConn. He's a shot maker. But their best players are Jason Tatum and Brown. That's their best players. Those are the best guys. And then their best defender is another wing, Marcus Smart. Okay? And with the maturation and development of Tatum and Brown, that's why they're really pushing everybody right now. Okay, so I just admonish the Knicks fans, watch what you're asking for. Be careful what you're wishing for. Because we got a defensive coach. We finally got a development staff with a reputation, a good reputation. We got a president that seems to understand what he's doing, and the owner's finally backing off to let him do what he's doing. And now we're starting and we get an opportunity to build a winner from the ground up. And we have a good foundation to get started here. Be happy for what you have. We're really going in a good direction. Peace.